A pole form.
The
of
pole
Wing.
form of Wing Chun Kung Fu, one of the Kung Fu I practice.
Now, what is that position all about?
Oh, that's just a horse stance, and that's just preparing to extend out and basically kind of like, what's the word, puncture into the target.
So this is spiritual in the sense that you're really using, what this is to use the energy to protect someone. It's like it's a defensive mode.
Well,
It's not for fighting. Only if you have to fight.
Yeah, well, what happens is when you start studying the martial art correctly, most people destroy their own bodies when they're learning the martial art. And that's the part you see. The media, the public presentation of martial arts is only half. Like Tai Chi, for instance, it's a yin-yang symbol. There are two sides to everything. And
Yes.
the healing aspect, is to first protect yourself. One, my teacher, Abu Kafir, used to always say, well, it's nice to be healthy and all of this stuff, but every now and then living in the real world, someone else may try to disrupt your condition. So you have to develop yourself to maintain by learning how to defend yourself. It's only proper not to, like he says, you turn the other cheek, but then you turn his cheek.
Yeah, well, I teach my students, they don't want to hurt a fly, but the problem is, what happens is, people come after them, and they, I teach them not to take an attack, but if somebody's coming at you, what are you going to do?
Well, this is where the philosophy of like Tai Chi and Wing Chun and Xingyi and Bagua, the other two styles, it's not so much the Xingyi, but the Bagua, is these styles are based on defense. That's why they use the word self-defense.
Right.
So these styles, unlike blocking and just hitting the other person, involve neutralizing tactics where you evade and avoid and basically keep the person off balance. That's enough to discourage a lot of people
Yes.
from continuing the attack. So in essence, like I've had a lot of situations where I've actually made friends with the person who was trying to attack me.
Oh, always.
And
Because
this is the
always.
ultimate goal as
Yeah.
the real
Well, you want
martial
to
art.
turn an enemy into a friend.
Yes.
Because really, you can only think in two ways, love or in fear. If you're not thinking in love, then you're thinking in fear. If it's like a dog. If a dog feels you're going to hurt, you're frightened of him, then he'll go on the defense to attack you. And then you can take that psychologically, too. You always want to neutralize anger.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now, so it's very interesting what you're bringing up about martial arts, because I really had just one view of it, which was, like that. Okay. Viewers may not be aware, though, of the connections that martial arts has and how it might be used to develop and strengthen the mind, the body, the spiritual connection. So maybe you can tell the viewers about how they can do that, because I'm sure they'd be very interested.
Oh, okay. You want to go first?
You've been very quiet in that outfit.
Yeah, there's a lot of information
put
on
red
this
on.
one.
You're right, red. Red will get you going. That's why they have higher insurance on their cars.
Well, we can sum it up into something very, very basic. Breath work.
Breath work.
Yeah.
Do I have bad breath? Is
No.
that what you say?
The actual act of breathing. I mean, we may say just pulling in an inhalation and an exhalation is basic breathing, but actually that's kind of like pouring the top off a jar of water and just shaking the jar every now and then. Water just comes out, nothing goes back in. You want to breathe in a manner where you're always taking something in, so you're always nourished. That would be real breathing.
Interesting.
So you're doing martial arts, practicing forms or applications, trying to make yourself healthy. You're not going to get healthy unless you're actually breathing properly. You can't lift your arm unless you have breath to actually nourish the body to give yourself all these things.
Well, I always say that blood flow and oxygen is like opium to the body.
So it's the actual nourishment, because a lot of people think they separate the systems. In the Chinese medicine, everything works as one. So, for instance, we always say, you could go a couple of weeks without food. You can only go a few days without water. You only go a couple of minutes without air. So Master Chan always said to us, he said, what's the first thing you do when you get here and the last thing you do when you leave? You inhale when you come, you exhale when you go.
Yes.
But to learn to keep the breath down, because if you notice when people get older, their breath gets shallower and shallower, and then you see some people who are very weak, only the neck muscles moving, because they're basically not breathing at all. And our lungs have a great capacity, so you can learn how to breathe fully. You'll charge up your blood. In China, they say the qi follows the blood. The qi leads the blood. So oxygen charges up the blood so that your system can work fully and efficiently. So breath is the first thing you need to do. And as far as getting into the powers of the mind and how to learn what potential the body has that we don't even realize, the breath is the first key, because it's the only subconscious function we have conscious control of, and that opens a lot of other doors.
So deep breathing is really very good. Now, in your classes, you teach various approaches to the martial fighting styles. Can you explain what they are to the viewers?
Okay, well, I teach Tai Chi Chuan, which is very slow moving martial art. You see the Chinese people in the parks practicing in the morning. It's actually a very excellent system to teach you how to relax, but it's also very thorough because you have to learn how to realign your body. It's almost like yoga. It's a corrective exercise where
I do yoga.
Oh, yeah. You rebalance your body. You have to learn how to center yourself so that you can reduce the effort that it takes to do your day-to-day motions.
Well, the yoga pulls the discs out. It brings oxygen.
Well, the Tai Chi does it, but in a lot more passive way.
Really?
By posturing and elongating the spine, but then using the breath to open the body with a gentle massage-like motion. And then the moves, if you practice them enough correctly, will loosen up and oil the other things.
Really?
And then there's another style that does the same thing called Ba Gua Zhang. That's the one you walk in a circle, but it involves twisting and heavy work on the lymphatic systems and the muscles.
So it's like a form of yoga.
It's like a yoga.
It's a kind of a yoga.
Yeah, it's really a little bit of everything wrapped into one. But then the fight training is a little different. Instead of starting out with all-out fighting, what the people learn is how to neutralize force and aggression through a sort of a slow-motion wrestling thing and a way of touching hands where they learn to passively work with each other first.
Really?
And then as they get stronger and more confident, when you develop your chi, you're able to withstand.
Now, when you say develop your chi, what are you talking about, your chi?
Well, your chi is a lot of things. It's basically air and breath, but it's also, when you develop the so-called chi, you develop your inner strength, which is really just proper body mechanics and developing people don't realize how strong your body actually is. We end up getting twisted up by gravity and bad posture and habits, and the martial art is supposed to teach you how to undo that stuff. So when you're in balance, it's hard for somebody to really come against you because you can easily deflect everything that comes at you. Now, when you get good at deflecting, then that's when you can play around and just test how strong you are.
How is that power you use in martial arts generated? How do you generate that power?
Through the breath and proper balance. It's just that simple.
What is you're talking about just deep breathing? Like,
There are lots of breathing methods. That's the funny thing. First, you have to learn how to breathe deeply and fully, and then there's so many other.
give us a deep breathing.
Okay.
Go for it. We want to breathe deeply
Okay,
here.
here's the simplest thing. One I learned from Sufi Roosevelt is how, like a lot of people, you ask them to take a deep breath, and they go like this, and then he says, breathe abdominally. But a lot of people, when they breathe, just the top part of the stomach moves if they're lucky. Like you took a deep breath just now, but there's a very simple way to take an even deeper breath. Now, the first thing is to correct the posture and elongate your neck so your air tubes are open.
Well, I just got it all everywhere.
Okay, yes, you'll feel the difference. Then just bring your awareness, like in the Eastern, they talk about pay attention to the center, the navel, the dantian, there's second chakra, all of this. This is.
I try to not think about my navel too much.
Oh, no, you have to now. This is very important. Okay. This is one of the biggest secrets you'll ever learn in life.
Right.
You should practice this.
Okay.
If you just take a deep breath, a long, slow, deep, full, steady breath as long as you can. Inhale.